health and the planet. Yuka, can you go to the next slide, please? So just a couple of housekeeping things. This event is going to be recorded, as I just mentioned. If you are willing to show your faces, we would love to see you. So please turn your camera on. Please mute yourselves, but feel free to type questions or comments into the chat. And even though I'm leading the conversation, we want to learn from you, and you are welcome to ask questions in the chat, but also share your tips and tricks for reducing food waste. And we'll be sending up follow-up materials and resources after the event, so don't feel like you have to write everything down. We'll be sending a lot of information afterwards. And we did get a lot of your questions in advance, so thank you. And I'll try to get to all of those, and there will be a Q&A at the towards the end. So let's start with introductions. Stop Waste, Maricel or Robin?
Hi, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Robin, and Maricel and I from Stop Waste are here as your co-hosts. And I just wanted to say a quick hello and thank you for joining us, and also let you just know a little bit about Stop Waste and why we're co-hosting this event. We're a public agency in Alameda County, and we serve the county, our 17 jurisdictions, 2 sanitary districts and school districts. And our agency works with the cities and community partners to help residents, businesses, and schools reduce waste, be more sustainable, and use resources more efficiently. And one of the big nexus between food and there's a huge nexus between food and waste. Organics makes up the largest portion of waste going to landfill, and we and other organizations across the country and the world have realized that a large part of that should be used and eaten and not go into our landfill or compost. Also, food reduction is one of the most efficient and attainable solutions to climate change. So that's a big one too. And so we focus on working with nonprofits and communities, businesses, as well as residential outreach to, we have a Stop Food Waste campaign to help ensure that food is making its way to its communities. It's being prevented from going to waste in the first place. And we're also trying to just educate the public and our residents and businesses about how to make the most of the food that they have. And so we're very excited and grateful to be partnered with Food Shift. We've been working with them for a number of years, and we're excited to share and to learn from their Operation Together program, where they're recovering and redistributing food, and also from Chef Jen, who will be sharing some ways that we can take this action into our own homes. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Yuka?
Hi, I'm the Executive Director for Food Shift. I am here with Chef Jen, our Culinary Director, to bring this program to you with the partnership with Stop Waste. Food Shift does many things. For this purpose, the easiest way to describe Food Shift is that we recover food that would otherwise go to waste. And with the help of our culinary training program apprentices who are paid and are overcoming employment discrimination, they help us to redistribute the food to our neighbors in need to nourish our neighbors. So with that, I present Chef Jen, our Culinary Director.
Hi, everyone. So I am live in Oakland. This is my home kitchen. I'll be stepping away from my computer and into the kitchen for a demo in just a couple of minutes. I've been working in kitchens and food programs for about 13 years in the Bay Area, and I've been at Food Shift for 3.5 years, and I am happy to be with all of you today. Since normally we would be in the room together and saying hello to each other, I just wanted to do that in a quick virtual way. So if everyone would just wave to the neighbor that's above them. Hi. And then wave to your neighbor that's below you. Now I feel like we all kind of know each other a little bit. How does that feel? Okay, next slide, please, Yuka. Yes, that one. So what is food waste? Food waste refers to edible food that is safe to eat but is thrown out. It often goes straight to the landfill, down the drain, or simply left in fields to rot. Food waste happens at every stage of the supply chain, but the majority happens in our homes. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about some tips to reduce that. As you can see, there's two photos on the left-hand side, and those are photos that are actually taken from our food recovery program. You can see that the fruit and the Brussels sprouts, they look just fine, and it's hard to imagine that they could have ended up in the landfill. There are a variety of food scraps. Some are edible and some are not. And I have some pictures here of pumpkin seeds, like when you get a giant pumpkin and you are going to throw it away after you've carved it, but there's all those seeds that are in there. Broccoli stalks are another thing that often get thrown away. The zest from citrus, there's some lemon peel right there, and carrot peels. So there's also things like inedible food scraps, which I have banana peels listed here, but I have recently seen a recipe for banana peel bacon, which I haven't actually made, but I am curious about it. And then eggshells and apple cores, those are things that are often composted, but eggshells and coffee grounds can be used in gardening. So we're still figuring out ways to be creative. I did get one question in advance that asked about any ideas for fruit peels that doesn't involve a lot of fat or sugar. And one thing that came to mind is making a spa water. So if you take peels off of fruit, you can just stick it in some water and it kind of just makes your water a little bit more exciting. You can also do that with cucumber peels, citrus, things like that. Adding citrus peels in while you're cooking dried beans or lentils, that gives it a little bit of flavor. And citrus peels can also be added to make to vinegar to make an all-purpose cleaner. And we're going to send a recipe for that after the presentation today. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk just a little bit about the impacts of food waste, and I'm going to just bullet out the different parts of the presentation that we wanted to go over today. So budget, the average household wastes 25% of the food that they buy, and that's about $1,800 worth of food that's lost every year for an average 4-person household. And for health, we want everyone to utilize all the parts of a vegetable. So thinking about peels, those are potatoes or carrots, the stalks of the broccoli, as I just mentioned, those are things that are often thrown away, and you should eat them. They have a lot of fiber and a lot of nutrients, and I just kind of, as long as it looks okay, and I just prefer not to peel them because then it needs somewhere else to go. As far as community, 1 in 4 people in San Francisco is food insecure. 35% of the food in the US is wasted, and massive amounts of edible food is landfilled. But many of our neighbors cannot get the food that they need. And then talking about the planet, that kind of is just, you know, we're trying to consider food waste and how it relates to climate change. And when we throw away food, we're also wasting the resources like the water, the energy, and the land used to produce, package, and transport from the farms to our plates, which creates significant environmental impacts. One other question that I received in advance is, what's your favorite way to tell people to stop waste? And I think awareness is one of those things, just being aware of how throwing away food has a domino effect on our wallets, on each other, and on the earth. And when you think of the impact, I think it does help to make people shift their behaviors. And the other thing I would say is changing your mindset and stop seeing things as food waste and just seeing it as food and what a valuable resource that it is. Next slide. Oh, those are all my graphics. So now we're going to show just a quick video about Operation Together, our food recovery program. And I'm gonna hop into the kitchen.
Operation Together is Food Shift's food recovery and redistribution program. While we had a food recovery program prior to 2020, we amped up our program in response to COVID, providing excess food from wholesalers and other grocers to our neighbors in need through our partnering organizations. 3 times per week, our senior food recovery specialist, Robert, goes to produce markets and picks up excess food that vendors are unable to sell because of surplus, mislabeling, peak ripeness, or slight imperfections. It's often hard to tell why the food is coming through our doors, and hard to imagine that if we had not gone to pick it up, it would have gone to landfill. The food gets brought back to our headquarters in Alameda, and food shift staff, culinary on-the-job trainees, and volunteers weigh and sort the produce. The recovered food is carefully curated to reflect the physical and cultural needs of each partner. Some partners prefer bulk fruits and vegetables, while others need produce bags packed. Each step in the process is done with safety, care, and dignity in mind. These organizations specialize in serving people that have been marginalized by our society, ranging from houseless folks, domestic violence survivors, recent immigrants, people who identify as Black and mixed race, veterans, and people with disabilities, all populations that are often overlooked. Since April 2020, 291 tons of food has been redistributed. Operation Together nourishes 13,000 plus neighbors weekly. Through our food waste reduction, education, and advocacy efforts, we want to see less of this and more of this. We are bringing to light that there is value in each person and the power to nourish in every fruit and vegetable.
Yuka.
Hi. Hi there. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So thank you for that presentation, Chef Jen. And I hope that with today's event that we can see how much food that we you saw dumped into the dumpster can be created into beautiful salads like the one that Miss Terry was showing in the slide. And so if you have any comments, hints as to how you might be reducing wasted food at your home and creative ways that you are upcycling your ingredients, please take the time to put it in the chat right now. Warm beans count, yes. We talk about highest and best use at Food Shift, meaning first we want all the food to be, if edible, to go to humans, and then if not to animals, and then if not to plants, and then at the very end, landfill. So if you have a perfectly good fruit, then we should eat it first rather than the warm bin. But at the end of the apple core that you're not using, then yes, by all means.
Stale bread ends to croutons. Yes, that's a good one. Preserved tomatoes and fresh herbs with a quick pickle. Oh, Helga, you are on track. We're gonna talk about some pickles today. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm moving from laptop to kitchen. Can everyone see me okay and see my cutting board? Yes. Okay.
I should stop sharing, right?
Yes.
So then it should be pinned. Okay, great.
Oh, wow, I'm double screened. Okay. So the as you saw on the slide really quickly that you had on before, it is cabbage season, and through our food recovery program, we have seen so much cabbage coming through our doors. And so I wanted to highlight cabbage because it's something that is inexpensive, it's easy to store, it lasts for a long time, and you can use the whole thing. So as you can see, this cabbage, it's like a little bit discolored on the edges. I'm just gonna peel off these first 2 leaves and I'm gonna stick them in the compost bin, and then I'm using the rest of this whole thing, including the core. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut it in half. Use the noise. Look at how pretty it is inside. And then I'm gonna cut this cabbage into wedges. So I'd say they're about 2-inch pieces, and I'm gonna put them onto my cutting board. They're like little mini steaks. Vegetarian steaks. Okay, so I'm gonna put these on my board, and when I cut it in half, it's easy to put the cabbage down flat, and so you're using a flat space rather than having the cabbage wobble all around. I'm just gonna flip it over. And this doesn't have to be perfect, and they're gonna kind of fall apart, and that's okay too, but we're gonna start here. So I have all the cabbage on this sheet, and this is just gonna get roasted, so it's very simple. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil, and you can measure it, but it's definitely not necessary. You just wanna make sure that the cabbage is coated, and I'm gonna add a sprinkle of salt, and a little bit of pepper. You can get jazzier if you want to. Like you could use something like garlic powder. I pulled out some of my spices. Sometimes I have this everything but the bagel spice. I like to put that on there sometimes. I have dried shallots. I have a Thai curry. I kind of put on the cabbage whatever it is that I'm going to have with it. So it kind of matches the cuisine. And all I'm gonna do is just give the cabbage a nice little massage, become friendly, and make sure that the oil and the salt and pepper is getting into some of those nooks and crannies. And that's it. So I have the oven heated to 425. You actually don't need to preheat the oven. I could stick this in before the oven was hot if you wanted to save energy. And you would just need to cook this for a little bit longer because it would be in there as it was preheating. So I'm gonna stick this in the oven for 15 minutes and then I'm gonna flip it, put it in for 15 minutes more and it'll be done. It's gonna get like kind of caramely and crispy and a little bit sweet. But before I do that, I'm gonna talk about something that Yuka calls hitchhikers. So hitchhikers are basically like when you already have the oven on and you have you're cooking food, you might as well maximize. So I'm going to put something else in there that's going to roast at the same temperature. And we're getting two things done at once. So again, I have cabbage hands. I'll wash them in a second, but I'm just going to put a little bit of oil. Again, just some salt and pepper. And when I'm keeping it neutral like that with the salt and pepper, you can kind of, after these green beans are cooked, you can stick them into anything throughout the week. So you have, they could go into salads, they could go, you know, you can have them on their own. I mean, it's really whatever you'd like to do, but you do have them pre-cooked and it's one less thing you have to do when you're making your meal. Okay, in we go. And I like to roast lots, I'm gonna wash my hands. I like to roast lots of vegetables at the same time, but my trick when I do that is because they take different amounts of time to cook. For example, if you're roasting sweet potatoes and mushrooms and onions, they're all gonna cook at different times. The sweet potatoes will probably take the longest. So I put them on the cutting board in rows. So then when the mushrooms and the onions are done, I can just kind of scrape them off the cutting board and keep the sweet potatoes going. The other thing is I was roasting on a parchment-lined baking sheet, and I reuse my parchment. As long as I'm not using something that's like gooey or animal protein, usually for vegetables, I'll just save the parchment on the baking sheet and I'll have it ready for the next time. So it's just another, it makes it easier to clean up too. It's definitely not required. You could try wax paper, you could also use foil, but I find that parchment is the easiest to be able to reuse. Okay, so while the cabbage is in the oven, I'm going to talk about some other things that you can make with something that often gets wasted. And that is pickle juice, or things that's like a pickle or a condiment. So, you know, you get this giant pickle container and it has all this amazing, there's garlic in here, there's dill, and then there's the pickle juice, which is basically just vinegar that's been sitting with cucumbers. So I'm going to reuse it and make it into a little dressing, and then I'm going to show you some ways to apply it. So I have this mustard container, has just like a little bit of leftover Dijon mustard, and there's not really a recipe for this because you can choose how you like it. I am a zesty kind of gal, so I like to have lots of vinegar, lots of lemon, things like that. But if you don't like that, you don't have to add as much. So I'm just going to pour some of this pickle juice in here. If you had pickled pepperoncinis, artichoke hearts, all things that are just like packed in vinegar, all of those will work. And then the pickle juice does have salt in it, so I'm not going to add any right now. I'm going to taste it first. And then I'm going to add some olive oil and then just give it a shake. Again, you can put other things in here, garlic powder, pepper, things like that. And now you've reused your Dijon mustard container. I have a Sharpie, so when I'm done with this, I'm just gonna write what it is and then stick it back in the refrigerator, and this is gonna stay in the fridge for a few weeks. Okay, let me get a spoon. Are there any questions that are popping up?
No, I think we're good, but please, if you have any questions or comments.
Do people like pickles? I love them. Ooh, that is zesty. It's very mustardy, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more of the pickle juice and a little bit more olive oil, and I think we're on our way.
Jeannie said they love pickles.
Oh, someone said they love pickles. I can't see my screen. Patty, our communications and operations manager, is also in the kitchen with me as the director. So I have a good team here. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm just going to taste this again. Oh yeah, okay.
Great comment that you can also reuse salad dressing that's left over in a salad bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And you could use this to top with the salad also. So I have some potatoes that I just boiled yesterday. Again, using the entire potato, there were some, discolored spots on the edges, but I kept the peel on, lots of fiber, and why throw it away? Celery was one of the things that someone had listed as hard to be able to use all of. I know you have to, sometimes I wish you could just buy one piece of celery because I know a whole bunch is sometimes hard to use. I throw it in a lot of things. I really enjoy celery, and another thing that I've done with it is made pickled celery. So this is really nice to throw in like a tuna salad or an egg salad, or if you're vegan, like a chickpea salad. It's zingy, but it still is a little bit crunchy, and you get the celery. But I've had that in my refrigerator for probably 6 months, and it's still going strong. So I'm just gonna chop up this piece of celery, speaking of. And it's gonna go in here, and this is gonna get this pickle dressing. A lot of folks use pickle juice added with mayonnaise. This is a vegan version, so we're not gonna use mayonnaise today. But I'm gonna add a little bit of green onion. And throw that in there. And a tip for green onion, so I didn't do that very well, but if you, next time you cut it, if you keep a little bit more of the white part and you stick it in a little bit of water and put it in a sunny spot in your kitchen or by a window, it's going to regrow. So it's just gonna regrow out the top, and you can keep snipping and it'll keep growing, and then eventually you can put it in the dirt. But that's one of my favorite tips. So I'll put it here. Next time we see each other, I'll probably have a bunch of green onions growing. Okay, and that's all I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna shake this up, put it on my potatoes, and then give it a good stir. And I still have some left. I know I haven't tasted it yet, but you can really add anything in here. I mean, the roasted green beans could go in here. Any little bits of things that you have in your refrigerator. Also, the pickled celery could go in there. Another thing that you can do is make a bean salad. Oh, you know what I forgot? I was going to add this garlic and dill from the pickles. So I'm just gonna chop that up and put that in there. I will stir that in a moment. But I have a bean salad here. Well, this isn't a salad yet. It's just plain beans. This is 1 can of beans, and it's just drained. These are navy beans. I have, like a lot of you were mentioning, end of the season tomatoes. This is a tomato from my garden. So I'm just gonna throw this in here. I'm collecting a little bit of some things right here so I can put them into my stock bag to make vegetable stock later. And I'm just gonna chop my tomatoes. Again, this is like, put whatever you want in here. You could add green beans again, olives, some of those pickly things that you have in your refrigerator. And this is gonna get this dressing as well. This dressing would work for pasta salad too. And some folks were mentioning that, I forgot what I was going to say, so just pretend like I didn't say that. But I am gonna pull out my little eat this first box that I have in my kitchen. So this is something that you can go to when you're making a salad like this and you wanna add some excitement. I have a little mini sweet bell pepper in here that needs to get used. So I'm gonna add that. Oh, I think what I was going to say is that things like this, they just get better over time. So having them in the refrigerator for a day or a couple of days, the dressing and all of the flavors are just going to escalate, and it gets better after a few days. So
Letitia just asked us how long can we keep the reused pickle juice with the new veggies inside, and does it have to be 100% submerged in the juice?
Sorry, can you ask me that again?
How long can you keep the reused pickle juice if it's already with the new vegetable that you put in? Because pickle juice can keep in the fridge pretty much forever, but once you put vegetables in, how long can it last?
I think for a long time. I mean, I don't have an exact answer to that, but I would say just use your senses on that one. And that's something that you will hear me say often is that, you know, just because something has a date on it or an expiration is sell by a use by date, those dates are arbitrary, so giving it looking at it, giving it the sniff test, and if you're willing, giving it a little bit of a taste test, that can tell you a lot. But I think because the pickle juice is basically just vinegar, it is sort of acting as a preservative, and so I think that it would last for a while.
Yeah, I think, and Letitia, it should be submerged in juice as much as possible so that it is with the preservative, the vinegar, salt, and the other spices. You can do a visual check to see if there's any sort of mold or anything funky on the surface, but usually you could just fish it out and make sure that when you fish it out that you are using clean knives and forks. That's usually how pickles and other condiments go bad, is not that the condiments themselves got bad, but because you used your dirty fingers or reusing forks to get to it. So I've got carrots that I've had for months in the submerged in the pickle juice.
I forgot to set a timer, but I'm just using my my internal clock. So I think it's been about 15 minutes, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flip all of this cabbage. Especially the cabbage on the ends and the smaller pieces, they're starting to get a little bit darker and caramelize. And I know cabbage is not necessarily a favorite of everyone, but I will say my dad said that he didn't really like cabbage, and when he came to visit, I made this for him, and it was requested to be on the menu again. So I think you can change people's minds. And so I'm gonna put this in for 15 more minutes, and because I'm not sure if we're going to we're gonna do Q&A and things like that. So I did roast some green cabbage this morning, and I just wanted to show sort of what it looks like after the 30 minutes. These bits kind of get, this is like the best part. This is what some people would call kitchen treasure. But they're crispy and sweet, and you can eat it at room temperature. This can go in the refrigerator and be leftovers, but it's also perfect just straight out of the oven. This could also get chopped up and go into something like the bean salad. And let's check our hitchhiker.
It's a great way to eat a lot of vegetables because they shrink.
Okay, I'm just gonna turn these green beans. Can you hear the sizzle though? You can see the green beans, they're kind of starting to change color, and I think that these are gonna be done probably before the cabbage. So I'm just gonna put these in for about 5 more minutes. And I will set a timer this time. Okay, so there's Patty. Bean salad, again, jazz it up as much as you want, but also you can make it pretty simple, and you can add things to it throughout the week if you're one of those people that gets tired of having the same thing over and over again. But this is pretty simple, and if you wanted to use dry beans, of course you could do that. And one of the other questions, I'm just gonna move these little bits out of here for right now. One of the other questions, someone mentioned that herbs are something hard to keep for a long time. I will say, I feel you on that. I can already see this is starting to decompose a little bit. I know that there's a lot of recommendations that you just chop the bottom off of the herbs and then stick them in a jar of water, and you can put a little plastic bag or something over it and put it on the counter. That does not work for me. The bottom gets sludgy, and I feel like it goes bad even faster. So what I do is I don't wash them when I bring them home. I put like a little bit, this is just a kitchen towel, and I put a teeny bit of water on it, so there's a little bit of moisture in this bag. And then I just put the cilantro or the herbs inside of here, and I put it in the drawer of my refrigerator. And that seems to be okay. I don't seal it, so it does get a little bit of air. The one herb that I will say does okay on the countertop is basil. It's a little bit hardier. The stems are usually hardier, but things like parsley and cilantro, those, and even mint sometimes, I feel like it does better in this version. Oh, and avocado. Anyway, I pulled out this Eat First box, and this is a stop waste resource that we'll be sharing with all of you, but it just kind of points to where you should go in your refrigerator first when you're making something. So I have this cilantro in here because it needs to get used. But someone did ask about avocado, and I've had this avocado in the refrigerator for 2 days, and it's been open. If it's not ripe, keep it on your counter or somewhere out of direct sunlight. When it does become ripe and you can feel, it's a little softer, that's when you put it in the refrigerator. That will help it so it doesn't keep ripening, and then use it in the next couple of days. But again, if you don't want to use the whole thing, you can cut it in half, keep the pit side or the part with the pit in a container. And I just put a little bit of lime juice on top of it. You could use lemon or whatever else that you wanted to. And then when I'm ready to use it again, I'll just pop out the pit. I will note that this has the sticker on it, and this is a little wet, but before I put this into the compost, make sure you take your sticker off, because that's one of the rules that Stop Waste has taught us. Are there other questions?
Chef, could you speak to the temperature for roasting vegetables? Because it doesn't have to be exactly at 425 for some.
No, I would say I usually roast vegetables around 375. It depends what it is and how much time that I have. So if I need to get something done a little bit faster, I might turn it up higher. But I would say 375 and just checking it and tossing it. It does need a toss so it kind of roasts evenly. But I would say maybe toss it after 15 minutes and check for the doneness, and then kind of decide how much longer you want it in there.
What about bean liquid?
Bean liquid?
Like when you drain the beans.
Oh, so when you drain the beans, I don't have a wonderful idea about that. Do you, Patty? I know when it's chickpeas, you can use it for other things, especially vegan types of things, but it's not something that I've played with a ton.
It's great egg whites. Whatever you
Oh,
want.
it acts as egg whites. That's right.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a good tip. Look at all these things I have here. I'm gonna have a lot of delicious leftovers. Oh, my timer is going off.
Ooh, Larry says they add bean liquid to their veggie stock.
So what?
To their veggie stock.
Oh, bean liquid and veggie stock. That's a good one. I will keep some of the bean liquid sometimes when I'm making like a chili or something like that, and I will put it in there. And I'll also sometimes I have like a stick blender, and I'll just put it into the chili and just zap it a couple of times, and it kind of makes the chili kind of come together and a little bit creamy. Okay, green beans are done. So this is another thing the zesty vinaigrette can go on top of. You could do it when it's hot. I think I'd like it when it was just cooled down a little bit, like a cold green bean salad. But again, this could go, I could chop this up and it could go into the potato salad or the bean salad or a green salad. There's so many options. How are we on time? 11:44. Okay. So this cabbage, I'll just show you. You can see how it's kind of starting to brown and caramelize, and it's getting crispy, but it does need a little bit more time, especially because we're using the whole cabbage and there's the cores. You don't want to have like a big bite of crunchy raw cabbage. So I'm gonna put it in for just a couple of minutes. Okay. Oh, that's hot. I think that we can move to Q&A, and I would love to hear from other people in the room. So if there's a question that someone has and you have a better answer than I do, please speak up or speak up in the chat. Any questions?
What are people doing for, I heard a lot of people doing leftovers for lunch. Is anybody like jazzing it up, or is it just a portion that you're augmenting with something else? How are we using leftovers from the night before? You can put that in a chat. And in the meantime, Perry had a question about jam leftovers. How's everybody using any jam leftovers? I like just making tea and then using the jam glass as a cup to use up all the little leftover jam stuck into the jar. So you have like a Russian tea situation. Rugula, Larry suggested to use jam. Great.
Leftover for salad dressing. Ooh, that sounds nice.
Nice.
There's, there's raspberry vinegars and things like that. You can just make your own version of that with a little bit of leftover jam. Jam to cocktails or mocktails as a sweetener. Okay, that sounds good. Let's see, something else that was mentioned that gets wasted often that folks wanted guidance on is greens. So lettuce greens was listed, and also or salad greens, and also hearty greens. It is a tricky one because, a lot of times if you get it at somewhere like Trader Joe's, it comes in a bag. I would say I hate to waste the plastic. Cut it open and try and use the plastic for something else, but take it out of that plastic, because your grains are going to get moist. They're going to kind of, I think it just takes off a little bit when they're all stuck in there together, and one starts to get a little bit sludgy than the rest of them do. So I would put them in a Tupperware or a container, put a towel underneath it, and then put whatever the greens are on top of it, and then another towel on top, or you can wrap it around just to take out some of that moisture, but also so it can get so it's able to breathe.
A question about figs. Do we have ideas for figs? Because they can be delicate and get mushy or rot pretty easily, mold pretty easily.
Who has, figs on pizza dough with red onions, cheese, ham if people like it, and herbs? Helga, I feel like you already know what to do with figs. That sounds good. Roasted figs are really good. If you cut them in half and the cut side, put it down on a baking sheet and roast it, it kind of gets caramelized. It's actually just like a really nice snack. That would be my idea. Do you have a fig idea?
Just that.
Let's see. Oh, grapefruit leather. Okay, that's interesting. Rinsing veggies in a light vinegar water solution prolongs the veggie freshness. Thanks, Chris. Okay, I'm just pulling out this cabbage. I'll bring it over. Can you see it? Nice and steamy, and the edges are crispy. This is what Patty and I are having for lunch today.
Hey, Chef, there was a question that came in during registration, and I've heard this actually a number of times before, but do you have tips for people who are cooking for just one or a small household?
Patty is nodding. I'm gonna let Patty answer just because of their reaction. Come on over.
I live solo and I often will just make food in bulk. It's the easiest way. And then I'm all set up for the rest of the week. But also just shopping for smaller size, like that little red cabbage was perfect for someone like me who's like, you know, you get these giant cabbages and I could eat that for like a month really. So smaller portions or smaller sizes if you can. And then just I guess get creative with all these tips that Jen's been sharing.
And the freezer is definitely your friend. So if you make something and you try sticking it in the freezer and stick it into the freezer into portion sizes so that you're able to pull it out. That's also another trick that I do with dairy, and I'll just show you. We don't drink very much milk, but my husband does request mac and cheese from time to time. So that's usually the only reason I buy milk, but I just freeze it in 2-cup increments because that's what I need for the mac and cheese. And it defrosts just perfectly. I also, when I get cheese, I will take it out of the plastic wrap, and if it comes that way, and I'll wrap it in parchment or wax paper because it needs to breathe. But if I know I'm not going to use it, I'll grate it, I'll stick it in a container in portions and I'll freeze it, and then I just pull it out as I need it, and it just works just right.
A lot of people wait until the last minute to try to, you know, salvage the sort of dying produce. But if you live alone, you can just plan that way, where if you do find that the cabbage you bought is a little bigger than you think you're gonna need, then go ahead and, you know, roast it so that lasts longer.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, don't forget to label everything before freezing. Your future self will thank you. That is very true, Robin. In my freezer, I also, we don't have a very well organized freezer because it's small. But what I do is I just keep a little list of what's in there. So I at least, it's just on a piece of paper. You can get fancy if you want to, but this is also a good, something good for kids to do. If they want to inventory the freezer, and then they're in charge of crossing things off or adding them as they go in. And so I just keep this here, and then even if I open the freezer and I can't see it, I know that it's in there so I can find it. Okay. Oh, berries was another thing that folks were asking about. My advice on that is not to wash them until you're ready to eat them. And same kind of tips as with the greens is line the bottom of a container, put the strawberries over it, and then put something over the top like a towel. And if you have strawberries or something that needs to get used right away, I would say making an agua fresca, and we will send which is just a yummy drink with a couple of ingredients. We'll send a recipe for that, or they're good to go into desserts, really. I mean, you can cook them down a little bit with maybe a little bit of sugar. You don't have to. You can add vanilla, things like that. Just cook them down, and you can put them even on top of your yogurt in the morning for breakfast, or sneak them into a dessert with ice cream or something like that. Okay, so Yuka, would you mind sharing the screen again? Because we have some resources for taking action. There's all of our cabbage. So taking action, Stop Food Waste is a great place to look. Their website has tools and resources, videos, things like this Eat First sign, and how to create a shopping list. You can go to and look at Food Shift, that's us. to volunteer with us in Alameda and or donate. And then Actera, which is in the South Bay, they are currently running a No Space for Kitchen Waste challenge. And that's just a way to learn about composting, best and highest use, like Yuka was mentioning, and other things to do in your kitchen. I just saw an email that they sent out yesterday with tips and resources, and I learned a lot from it. So that's a good place to look as well. And then next slide. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I think we covered a lot of information. Thank you so much for joining us. And we would like to know how you all are going to take action after our hour together today. So what is one change that you're committed to make? If you would just type that in the chat, I would love to see that and share it with the group as well. Yes, Yuka said we can all be climate activists in our own kitchens and in our own spaces. Don't pickle juice. That's true. I'm going to try pickled celery. I'm also very hungry for figs now. Oh, pickle garret. That's so cute. I was trying to think of a good name, so I think that might be it. Claire, I will try growing my own green onion sprout in a jar. Nice. I will donate leftover foods to the community fridge in Berkeley, located at Adonis Farm. Share food that you have too much of, volunteer at Food Shift and make that bean salad. Use a tea towel for storing my lettuce and greens. Nice. And we have a seasonal kitchen guide that Food Shift and Stop Waste created together. And that is one of the resources. Maybe some of you have seen it. If you haven't, there are a lot of tips about storage. There are some template style recipes. So the way that they're written is, oh, Yuka is showing it. They're written so you use, as you can see here, something like 3 cups of vegetables rather than listing specific vegetables where you feel like you have to go out and buy something. Just utilizing what you have in your space, in your kitchen, in your pantry. So you can see there's storage pointers and tips for reducing waste, as well as some templates. So a lot of things that we talked about, like regrowing your green onions, making a berry agua fresca, how to store spinach and leafy greens, all of those things are in here. So I hope that you will find them useful, because I feel like I can keep referencing this guide. We'll try roasted cabbage. Have never had that before. And also try the banana peel bacon. I can send a recipe to the Food Shift team to share with y'all. Cool. Thanks, Leah. I'm excited about having the term hitchhiker for my current practices of cleaning the veggies from the fridge to roast all the things when I do my main veggie roasting. Yeah, nice.
I didn't see anything about anything.
Olga says, thank you so much, Chef Jen and participants, for all the good tips. Okay, well, we're just about at time. Anyone have any last burning questions or anything else that they'd like to add? Larry?
I was curious if anyone in this group has developed a clear message to share with people about the mechanism. We all talk about how food waste or edible food waste prevention, like we've just been going over here, is so important for the climate and water conservation, et cetera. But it's often left kind of blank how what the actual mechanism is that preventing this excess food is actually helping the climate. And I know that there are real detailed messages about it, but I'm wondering if anyone has developed a kind of a consumer friendly message that really motivates people.
I feel like Yuka's gonna have a response to that.
So yeah, so one of the ways that we think about food waste or wasting food being a climate action item is because when the food breaks down, when it rots, it creates methane gas. And we've all heard of carbon dioxide being bad for the environment in terms of creating greenhouse effect and warming up the planet. Well, you think carbon dioxide is bad. Methane is, depending on different research, over 20 to 80 times worse than CO2. And so if methane is being produced by food that we waste in landfills, then it is a huge contributor to climate change. And so we're all talking about crazy weathers we're having. That could be managed more by us controlling food waste or reducing food waste. So that would be the case. And of course, we are talking about extra pesticides that we're using that we don't have to be using if we just didn't waste food. And the wasted food also takes up 20% of the water that we use. And we're talking about drought in California. So for all those reasons, food waste is overlooked as a great solution, or at least mitigation strategy to climate change.
Okay, y'all. Well, we're at time. Thank you so much to everyone that joined us today, and also for everyone that was sharing. I like the feeling that we're in a room with our community and learning from each other. So really appreciate all of your time, and thank you, and have a great rest of your Thursday. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.